Before you scroll, before you doubt yourself one more time, listen to this. There is a silent battle happening inside your mind every single day. It's the reason you start strong and stop halfway. The reason you know what you should do but somehow don't do it. It's not lack of talent. It's not lack of opportunity. It's that quiet voice that whispers, "What if you fail?" Here's the truth most people never hear. That voice is lying to you. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn a simple but powerful mental shift that has helped ordinary people break free from self-doubt, take control of their thoughts, and finally move forward with confidence. No hype, no shortcuts, just a mindset change that works when everything else hasn't. If you've ever felt stuck, uncertain, or held back by your own thoughts, this message is for you. Stay with me until the end, because the idea you hear today may not just change how you think. It may change the direction of your life. Doubt is not something you are born with. It is something you absorb over time through experience, repetition, and influence. As children, people act without hesitation, speak without fear, and dream without limits. But as life unfolds, failures, criticism, comparison, and negative environments begin to condition the mind. Each setback teaches the mind to hesitate. Each harsh word plants uncertainty. And each unfulfilled attempt reinforces the belief that trying again may lead to pain. Over time, the mind starts protecting itself by creating doubt. Not because doubt is true, but because it feels familiar and safe. This is why doubt feels so real. It has been practiced repeatedly. Society reinforces it by rewarding caution, warning against risk, and labeling mistakes as permanent failures instead of temporary lessons. When doubt repeats long enough, it disguises itself as logic, convincing you that it is wisdom when in reality it is fear wearing a mask. Understanding that doubt is learned is powerful because it removes its authority. If doubt were truth, it would be universal and permanent, but it is not. People doubt themselves in one area and feel confident in another, proving that doubt depends on conditioning, not reality. What has been learned through repetition can be unlearned the same way by replacing old mental patterns with new ones. The mind does not argue with repetition, it accepts it. When a person consciously chooses to challenge doubtful thoughts instead of obeying them, the mental habit begins to weaken. Each time you act despite doubt, you interrupt the old pattern and create a new reference point. Gradually, the mind learns a different response, one based on self-trust rather than fear. This process does not require talent, luck, or external validation, only awareness and consistency. Once you recognize doubt as a conditioned response instead of a factual warning, its emotional power starts to dissolve, allowing confidence to be rebuilt from the inside out through deliberate thought, belief, and action. The mind does not operate on fairness or logic, it operates on dominance. Among thousands of thoughts passing through the mind each day, the one that is repeated with the most consistency and emotional intensity becomes the ruling thought, and every other thought begins to align with it. This is why a single negative idea, if allowed to replay again and again, can shape behavior, confidence, and self-image, even when there is no evidence to support it. The mind treats repetition as instruction, not suggestion. When a thought is entertained repeatedly, the subconscious accepts it as a command and reorganizes perception, habits, and reactions around it. If fear is the dominant thought, the mind searches for reasons to avoid action. If belief is dominant, the mind looks for ways to move forward. This process happens automatically, whether you are aware of it or not. Most people do not fail because of a lack of ability, but because they unknowingly allow doubt to become the dominant thought. Once doubt takes that position, it influences decisions, weakens persistence, and distorts reality, making obstacles appear larger than they truly are. However, dominance can be reclaimed. By consciously choosing a single empowering thought and returning to it repeatedly, you begin to shift control. The mind cannot hold two opposing dominant thoughts at the same time. One must lead and the other must follow. When belief is reinforced daily through inner dialogue, visualization, and deliberate focus, it slowly overrides fear. Emotion strengthens this process because the mind responds more strongly to feelings than to words alone. A thought spoken with certainty and emotional intensity carries far more weight than a thought spoken casually. Over time, the dominant thought becomes automatic, influencing actions without effort. Decisions become quicker, hesitation decreases, and confidence appears to grow naturally. In reality, confidence is not created. It is revealed when the mind is no longer ruled by contradictory thoughts, allowing clarity, direction, and self-trust to take control. Indecision is the mental state where doubt finds its strongest shelter, because when the mind has not chosen a direction, it continues to debate, hesitate, and imagine every possible negative outcome. The longer a person remains undecided, the more power doubt gains, not because the situation is dangerous, but because uncertainty keeps the mind in a constant loop of questioning. Doubt thrives in delay, feeding on the habit of overthinking and the fear of making the wrong move. A firm decision, even when all variables are not clear, immediately shifts the mind from fear to focus. The moment a decision is made, the internal argument ends and energy that was wasted on hesitation is redirected toward execution. This is why successful individuals appear confident. Even when circumstances are uncertain, they have trained themselves to decide quickly and adjust later. The mind prefers clarity over perfection, and a clear decision provides a psychological anchor. Once the decision is made, the subconscious begins to search for ways to justify and support it, instead of questioning it. This natural tendency transforms obstacles into problems to solve rather than reasons to quit. Indecision, on the other hand, keeps the mind passive, waiting for external reassurance that rarely comes. Fear disguises itself as caution, convincing the individual that waiting is wisdom, when in reality it is avoidance. Decisiveness does not eliminate risk, but it eliminates mental paralysis. Even a wrong decision produces feedback, experience, and growth, while no decision produces stagnation. Each time a person chooses decisively, they strengthen a mental muscle that weakens doubt over time. The mind begins to associate decision-making with progress rather than danger. As this habit forms, hesitation shortens, confidence increases, and doubt loses its grip, because it can no longer survive in a mind that is trained to choose, move, and adapt without fear. Emotion is the invisible force that gives life to thought, transforming simple ideas into deeply rooted beliefs that guide behavior and identity. A thought spoken without emotion remains weak and easily replaced, but a thought charged with feeling penetrates the subconscious mind and leaves a lasting impression. The mind responds far more strongly to emotion than to logic, because emotion signals importance and urgency. This is why people remember emotionally intense experiences with clarity while forgetting neutral ones. When fear is attached to a thought, the mind treats it as a warning and reacts defensively, often magnifying danger beyond reality. In the same way, when belief is fueled by strong emotion, the mind accepts it as truth and aligns actions to support it. Many people repeat positive words but feel no conviction behind them, which is why the repetition produces little change. Words without emotional backing are processed intellectually, not subconsciously. Emotion acts as the bridge between conscious intention and subconscious acceptance. When a person speaks with certainty, passion, and inner intensity, the subconscious interprets that message as an instruction rather than a wish. This is how belief overrides fear. Emotion also accelerates the conditioning process, compressing time by strengthening mental associations quickly. A belief formed with emotion can replace years of doubt when reinforced consistently. This is evident in moments of crisis or inspiration, when people suddenly make life-altering decisions because emotion has overpowered hesitation. The mind in those moments no longer debates, it commits. By deliberately attaching strong positive emotion to empowering thoughts, a person can reprogram habitual responses. Visualization, affirmations, and inner dialogue become effective only when they are felt, not merely repeated. Feeling success, confidence, and certainty in advance conditions the mind to expect them. Over time, emotionalized belief reshapes perception, making opportunities more visible and obstacles less intimidating. Fear loses its dominance not because it disappears, but because it is replaced by a stronger emotional signal. The mind always follows the emotion that carries the greatest intensity, directing attention, shaping choices, and determining whether a person advances or retreats. Repetition is the process through which the mind forms identity, because whatever a person consistently tells themselves eventually becomes the story they live by. The subconscious mind does not evaluate statements for truth or falsehood, it measures frequency. A thought repeated once is ignored, repeated occasionally is questioned, but repeated daily becomes accepted. Over time, these repeated inner statements shape self-image, and self-image silently dictates behavior. When someone repeatedly identifies as hesitant, unlucky, or incapable, the mind looks for evidence to confirm that identity, filtering experiences to match the belief. In contrast, when empowering statements are repeated with consistency, the mind begins to reorganize perception to align with them. This is why change feels unnatural at first. The old identity resists replacement. The discomfort experienced during repetition is not a sign of failure, but a sign of transformation. Each repetition weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new one, even when no immediate results are visible. The mind is being conditioned, not convinced. Identity is not formed through isolated moments of motivation, but through daily mental reinforcement. This process explains why habits are so difficult to break and why new ones feel forced initially. The subconscious seeks familiarity, and repetition provides it. As empowering statements are reinforced consistently, they move from conscious effort to automatic belief. Behavior then changes without resistance because actions naturally follow identity. A person who repeatedly affirms discipline begins to act disciplined without forcing it. Repetition also reduces internal conflict. When identity is clear, decision-making becomes simpler, hesitation decreases, and confidence stabilizes. The mind stops negotiating with doubt because it now operates from a defined self-concept. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it is inevitable with consistency. Identity is not discovered, it is programmed through what you repeatedly say, think, and accept. Once repetition reshapes identity, behavior, results, and confidence align automatically, creating lasting change from the inside out. Action is the ultimate force that dissolves doubt because doubt exists primarily in thought, not in movement. The mind can imagine failure endlessly, but once the body is in motion, imagination loses authority. When a person takes action, even a small one, the brain receives new evidence that contradicts fear-based assumptions. Doubt survives on anticipation, on imagined outcomes that have not yet occurred, but action collapses those imagined futures into real experience. The moment action begins, the mind shifts from speculation to problem solving. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong, it starts asking, what is the next step? And this shift changes everything. Confidence is not something that appears before action, it is created by action itself. Waiting to feel ready only strengthens doubt, because readiness is a feeling the mind rarely provides without proof. Action provides that proof. Each small step taken creates a feedback loop where effort produces experience, experience produces learning, and learning produces certainty. This is why momentum is so powerful. Once movement begins, it becomes easier to continue, and doubt struggles to interrupt a moving force. Even imperfect action weakens doubt more effectively than perfect planning. The mind respects evidence, and action generates evidence faster than thought ever can. Fear tells you that you are not capable, but action forces the mind to adapt, adjust, and respond, revealing capability through experience. Over time, the mind begins to associate action with progress rather than danger. This association rewires instinctive responses, making hesitation shorter and courage more accessible. Action also grounds belief in reality. Instead of relying on motivation or emotion alone, belief becomes anchored in lived results, no matter how small. Each completed action, each effort made despite uncertainty, builds trust in self. Doubt loses credibility because it has been repeatedly disproven by movement. The person who acts consistently no longer debates whether they can do something, they know they can figure it out along the way. In this way, action does not wait for confidence, it manufactures it step by step until doubt has no space left to exist. In the end, doubt is not an enemy to be feared, but a signal that the mind is waiting for direction. When you understand that doubt is learned, you take away its authority. When you control the dominant thought, you decide what rules your inner world. When you choose decisively, you cut off hesitation at its root. When you fuel belief with emotion, you give your thoughts the power to become reality. When you repeat empowering ideas daily, you reshape your identity from the inside out. And when you take action, even before confidence appears, you turn belief into lived proof. These principles work together as a single mental system, and when practiced consistently, they leave no room for doubt to survive. Mastering the mind is not about eliminating fear completely, but about training yourself to move forward in spite of it, with clarity, certainty, and purpose. Thank you for listening, for investing your time, and for choosing growth over comfort. May clarity guide your decisions, courage strengthen your actions, and belief carry you forward toward the life you are capable of creating. Good luck on your journey, and may every step you take move you closer to your highest potential.